The stars were silent, but silence had never felt so heavy. The Terran fleet drifted on the edge of a dying nebula, its colors burning faint against the dark. For weeks, the humans had waited, hunted shadows of war moving closer, the unseen enemy whispering threats across the galaxy. No one knew when the first strike would come. Yet every soldier on board knew one thing: it would be soon. Admiral Reyes stood on the bridge of the flagship Iron Resolve. His hands rested against the cold steel railing, eyes fixed on the holographic map flickering with red signals. Each signal marked a hostile fleet. They were bigger, stronger, and older. Their weapons burned through planets. Civilizations had fallen in weeks. Entire star systems had been silenced, and now they were coming for Earth. The enemy called themselves the HFY, creatures of bone and iron, standing taller than men, with eyes that glowed like molten fire. They feared nothing, or at least that's what they wanted the galaxy to believe. But humans knew something the HFY did not. Wars are not only won with weapons. They are won with will. Still, as the first reports came in, even the bravest felt doubt. A scout ship, the Horizon, had gone missing near the nebula's edge. When fragments of its hull drifted back, scarred and melted, the crew realized the HFY had arrived. And they hadn't just destroyed the ship they had sent. A message on the Iron Resolve. Silence filled the command deck as the wreckage was displayed. Burnt steel, torn armor, the insignia of Earth, charred black. Every officer stared, their jaws tight, their hearts pounding. For a moment, the silence was heavier than any explosion. "They want us to fear them," Reyes finally said, his voice low. "But fear is their weapon, not ours." Yet he knew fear was spreading. Across the fleet, whispers traveled faster than light. Men and women questioned whether humanity stood a chance. The HFY had crushed empires far older than Earth. What hope did a young species have? That night, the soldiers sat in dim-lit quarters, cleaning rifles, checking armor, speaking little. A private named Alina pressed her hand against a family photo taped inside her locker. Her brother's smile looked back at her, innocent, untouched by war. She closed her eyes and whispered, "I'll come back. I swear I'll come back." But deep inside, she wasn't sure. None of them were. Then came the first strike. Without warning, alarms screamed through the fleet. The nebula lit up, bright as fire. Shadows stretched across the stars as massive HFY warships emerged, each the size of a city. Their hulls were jagged black, shaped like predators frozen in steel. The sound of their weapons shook the very air, even across the void. The first blast tore through a Terran frigate, ripping it apart in seconds. The crew never had time to scream. The explosion lit the bridge of the Iron Resolve, and for the first time, the soldiers saw what they were truly facing. Panic spread, but Reyes did not move. His voice cut through the fear like a blade. "Hold the line." It was more than an order, it was a command to the human spirit itself. Across the fleet, captains echoed his words. Soldiers braced themselves. Fighters launched like sparks into the void. The HFY advanced, weapons glowing. They fired again, burning through another human ship. The fleet shook. Fear clawed at every heart. But humans had learned something across centuries of survival. When pressed to the edge, they did not break. They hardened. Alina gripped her rifle, ready for boarding. She was trembling, but she stood. In her chest, fear and fire battled, and fire began to win. Reyes leaned closer to the comm, his voice steady as stone. "They fear our weapons, but they have never met our will. Tonight, they will." The words sparked across the fleet like electricity. Pilots gritted their teeth. Soldiers slammed helmets shut. Engineers roared defiance into the void. And as the first wave of enemy fire blazed across the stars, humanity did not run. They surged forward. The battle had begun. But what none of them knew, what even Reyes did not yet understand, was that this was only the first strike. HFY had come prepared for war. And in the darkness of the nebula, something far worse waited. Something that would test the will of humanity to its breaking point. The void shook with fire. Human ships darted between the shadows of giants, their engines burning bright against the black. The HFY warships were enormous, their armor thick, their weapons merciless. Every blast they fired split the darkness with searing light, tearing through metal and bone alike. Yet the Terran fleet did not scatter. They pressed forward, wave after wave, like a tide refusing to retreat. Admiral Reyes stood tall on the bridge, every strike against his fleet carving deeper lines into his face. But his voice never wavered. "Push into their formation," he ordered. "Don't let them surround us." The iron resolve roared forward, its cannons blazing. Explosions flared against HFY armor, sparks like meteors breaking across a mountain. The enemy ships staggered, but did not fall. It was like striking iron with fire, loud, fierce, but unbroken. Inside the corridors of the iron resolve, alarms blared red. Marines rushed to defensive posts, weapons charged. Among them was Elena, her rifle heavy in her hands. Sweat ran down her brow as she moved with her squad. She had trained for years, but nothing had prepared her for the sound of metal tearing under alien fire. Then came the boarding alarms. HFY pods struck the hull like thunderbolts, tearing through steel, opening paths for invasion. The sound of claws scraping metal echoed through the ship. Shadows moved in the smoke-filled corridors. And for the first time, humans faced the enemy face to face. The HFY were monsters of war. Kesa, twice the height of men, armored with living bone. Their weapons fused into their very arms. Their roars shook the walls. When the first one burst through the smoke, Elena froze. Its eyes burned like molten fire. Its teeth bared in a snarl. Her squad leader shouted, "Hold your ground," and fired. The blast lit the corridor, slamming into the alien's chest. It staggered, but did not fall. With a scream, it lunged forward, claws slicing the air. Elena's heart pounded. For a split second, fear rooted her feet. Then she remembered her brother's photo taped in her locker. She thought of Earth, of the millions waiting, praying, hoping someone out there could stop the monsters in the dark. Her fear turned into fire. She squeezed the trigger. Her rifle thundered again and again, the recoil slamming into her shoulder. Sparks flew as her shots pierced glowing joints in the alien's armor. The HFY roared in rage and collapsed, its body crashing against steel. For a moment, silence. Then more shadows filled the corridor. The squad braced themselves, hearts racing, weapons ready. On the bridge, reports came in from across the fleet. Ships lost, crews fighting tooth and claw. Casualties rising. Reyes listened to every word, his eyes locked on the burning holographic map. The HFY were relentless. For every alien that fell, another came. And yet, he saw something else. His people were not breaking. Against monsters, against fear, against death itself, they were holding. Admiral Sor cried, "The vanguard is crippled. They're asking permission to retreat." Reyes clenched his jaw. He could see the vanguard flickering on the map, its engines burning out. Retreat meant survival, but it also meant opening a gap in the line. If the line broke, the fleet would collapse. His voice was steel. "Tell them to hold. Tell them. Humanity holds today, or humanity falls forever." The message went out, and on the dying vanguard, soldiers cheered through blood and fire. Their ship turned, weapons blazing one. last time, blocking the enemy's path even as flames consumed its hull. Across the fleet, the will of men and women hardened. Ships fought until their cannons melted. Pilots flew until fuel ran dry. Marines stood in corridors, choked with smoke and blood, firing until their hands trembled. Elena's squad held the line in the belly of the Iron Resolve. Every alien that fell seemed replaced by two more, yet they did not move back. At one point, Elena fell to her knees, ears ringing, vision blurred. An exokai towered over her, claws raised. For a breath, death was certain, but then a fellow Marine threw himself between them, blasting the alien at point-blank range. The soldier was torn apart, but Elena lived. Rage burned through her grief. She rose again, screaming, her rifle spitting. Fire, the battle raged on. Hours felt like days. The fleet bled, but still it held. The nebula burned with wreckage, human and exokai alike floating in fire and silence. Yet, amid the chaos, a shift began. The exokai were strong, but their strength had limits. They were used to crushing fear, not facing defiance. They were used to breaking wills, not finding them unshaken. Reyes saw it first, a hesitation in their lines, a pause in their advance. He leaned forward, his voice low but fierce. There, starting to doubt, the words rippled across the bridge. Could it be true? Could the monsters who had shattered empires actually hesitate before humanity? Then came the signal. A new wave of exokai ships, larger and darker, emerging from the nebula's shadow. They were different, heavier, older, and at their center, a ship unlike any other, black as night, glowing with crimson fire. The flagship of the exokai warlord. Reyes stared at it, his chest heavy. The first battle was not the end, was only the beginning. The nebula trembled with the arrival of the warlord's ship. It was larger than any vessel the humans had ever seen, its jagged hull blotting out stars, glowing veins of crimson pulsing across its surface like a living wound. Where it passed, silence followed, as though the very void bent in fear. On the Iron Resolve, every officer froze. For a long moment, the bridge was silent, except for the steady hum of dying engines and the faint buzz of comms, filled with screams and static. Admiral Reyes narrowed his eyes. He had studied reports of the exokai warlord, but seeing his flagship with his own eyes was different. It felt less like a machine and more like a predator, ancient, patient, hungry. Then the comms came alive. A deep, guttural voice filled every channel, its words translated into broken human speech. Children of Earth, your weapons are dust. Your fire is weak. Kneel, and your deaths will be quick. The voice rolled like thunder, echoing in the bones of every soldier. Some clenched their fists, others shivered. Elena, standing blood-stained in a corridor with her squad, felt the voice shake her very soul. For a second, she wanted to drop her rifle and collapse. But then she remembered the Marine who had sacrificed his life to save her, and her fear hardened into something else. She spat on the floor, whispering to herself, "We don't kneel." On the bridge, Reyes pressed his palms against the railing. Leaning forward, his reply was calm, but his words carried the weight of humanity's defiance. "We may fall, warlord, but if we fall, we'll drag you into the fire with us." The warlord's laughter shook the comms, a sound colder than the void itself. Then his fleet advanced. The battle shifted into nightmare. The warlord's flagship unleashed weapons unlike anything humanity had seen. Beams of crimson energy carved through steel-like paper, slicing ships in half with a single strike. Entire squadrons of fighters were erased in flashes of light. Human ships fought back, pouring every missile and laser into the beast. But its Armor drank the fire like rain on stone. Across the fleet, desperation grew. Ships burned, crews screamed. But even as destruction spread, so did defiance. Every time the warlord destroyed a ship, another captain roared into comms, refusing to retreat. Every time a Marine fell, another stepped over their body and kept firing. In the corridors of the Iron Resolve, Elena's squad fought wave after wave of boarders. Blood coated the floors, smoke filled the air. The sound of rifles, claws, and screams blended into chaos. Elena's arms ached from firing, her ears rang, her body shook with exhaustion. Yet she did not stop, pushed them back. Her squad leader shouted, his voice breaking, "This ship holds or Earth burns." Those words struck her heart. It was no longer about surviving for herself, or even for her brother. It was about something greater, a promise to the billions who could not fight, who were counting on them to stand. And so she stood. Every human did, but Reyes knew they could not hold forever. His eyes locked on the massive warlord ship dominating the field. It wasn't just a weapon of war. It was a symbol. As long as it remained, the HFY would believe themselves invincible, and humans would bleed without end. "Target their flagship," he ordered, his voice steady. The officers turned to him in shock. "Admiral, our weapons barely scratch their armor." "Then we scratch until the void itself bleeds," Reyes said. "Focus fire." The fleet shifted, damaged, burning, scattered, yet they turned together, their weapons uniting on a single target. Missiles streaked across the void. Cannons blazed until they overheated. Fighters dove like sparks into the darkness. For the first time, the warlord's ship trembled. Its armor cracked, small pieces breaking away in burning chunks. The warlord's voice returned, filled with fury instead of mockery. "You dare." Reyes stared at the massive ship and whispered, "We do more than dare." The HFY flagship retaliated with blinding fury, vaporizing a human destroyer in one shot, then crippling two more. But even as ships fell, the humans pressed harder. Every shot was not just metal and fire, was will, sharpened and hurled. Into the dark, Elena and her squad felt the ship shake as the Iron Resolve fired everything it had. She looked out a shattered viewport for a moment and saw it. The warlord's ship, massive and burning in places. The impossible made possible. By human hands, her chest swelled with something she had never felt before in war. Hope. Still, the warlord was not beaten. His voice roared once more across the fleet. "You fight like dying animals, but I will show you true despair." And then, from the heart of the flagship, a new weapon began to awaken. Crimson light gathered, pulsing brighter and brighter, until it threatened to tear the void itself apart. Reyes gripped the railing. His officers stared in horror. If that weapon fired, it would end not just a ship, but the entire fleet. The admiral's voice cut through the fear. "All ships, prepare. This is where we stand. This is where we prove them wrong." The crimson glow reached its peak, casting shadows across the stars. Humanity held its breath, and then the warlord's weapon fired. The void exploded in crimson light. The warlord's weapon fired, and for a moment it was as if a new star had been born. The blast tore across the battlefield, swallowing human ships in a wave of fire. Entire cruisers vanished, their crews erased in less than a heartbeat. Shockwaves rattled the Iron Resolve, metal screaming, alarms shrieking. Admiral Reyes gripped the railing as the bridge shook violently. Officers were thrown from their stations, sparks raining from broken consoles. The light was blinding, filling every viewport, every screen. For a moment, it seemed as if nothing could survive. Then, silence. When the glare faded, the battlefield was unrecognizable. Wreckage drifted in burning clouds. Half the human fleet was gone, their signals extinguished from the map. The survivors floated among debris, engines failing, hulls torn open. On the Iron Resolve, smoke filled the bridge. Men and women coughed, bloodied but alive. Reyes forced himself upright, his voice hoarse but steady. "Report." An officer face streaked with soot struggled to speak. "Admiral, the Vanguard, the Starlight, the Defiance, all gone. Casualties. Catastrophic. Weight pressed down on every soul." The warlord's weapon had not just destroyed ships, it had struck at the heart of human hope. And then the voice returned, cold, merciless, triumphant. "You see now, you are nothing. Surrender, and your world may live as slaves. Resist, and Earth will burn." The words crawled through the survivors like poison. Some whispered prayers. Others clenched their fists in rage. Alina, deep in the corridors with her squad, leaned against the wall, chest heaving. She had felt the ship shudder, as if death itself had passed through it. Around her lay the bodies of friends and enemies alike. Her squad leader slumped beside her, blood running down his arm. His voice was weak but fierce. "They think we're broken, but we're not. We're still here." Alina closed her eyes, hearing his words echo inside her. She thought of Earth again, the blue oceans, the green fields, her brother's smile. If they surrendered, all of it would be gone. Not destroyed, maybe, but twisted, enslaved. Humanity would become shadows of themselves. No, she refused. She rose to her feet, rifle trembling in her hands, but her voice firm. "We fight, even if. We're the last ones breathing. We fight." On the bridge, Reyes heard reports of panic spreading through the fleet. Some captains debated retreat, others begged for orders. The admiral's jaw tightened. He knew the truth. Retreat was impossible. There was nowhere to run. Earth itself lay behind them. If they broke here, everything was lost. He straightened, blood trickling down his temple, and spoke into the calm. "This is Admiral Reyes. To every surviving ship, listen carefully. They have firepower beyond anything we've faced. But firepower does not win wars. Will does. If you can still hear my voice, then you are proof we are not broken. We are still here. And while we breathe, humanity fights." His words rolled across the battered fleet, reaching every survivor, every soldier, every soul who still drew breath. Something stirred in them, something stronger than fear. Pilots strapped back into shattered cockpits. Engineers patched hulls. With shaking hands, Marines reloaded rifles with blood-stained fingers. Elena's squad listened too, and fire sparked in their eyes. The warlord's ship began to charge again, crimson veins glowing brighter. Another blast would finish what the first had started. Reyes saw it, and his voice hardened. "We have won. Chance. All ships focus everything on that weapon. If it fires again, we are ash. But if we break it, we live." The fleet moved, broken, burning, crippled, but alive. Every surviving cannon turned. Every missile loaded. Even fighter pilots. With half-dead engines launched toward the impossible target. The warlord laughed, confident, towering in his invincible pride. "You crawl like insects. Your weapons cannot touch me." But then the humans fired. Every gun, every missile, every scrap of strength humanity had left was unleashed at once. The void filled with streaks of light, a storm of fire converging. On a single point, the glowing core of the warlord's weapon. The flagship shuddered under the impact. Its armor cracked, glowing lines flickering. For the first time, the crimson glow faltered. The weapon sparked, sputtered, then dimmed. Across the human fleet, cheers erupted. Soldiers wept, laughed, screamed in triumph. Alina grinned through. Blood and sweat, her voice raw. We hurt them. We actually hurt them. But the moment was short. The warlord's voice roared back, louder and darker than before. You dare scar my blade. Then I will carve your world with my claws. From the depths of his ship, new weapons unfolded, darker and deadlier than the first. Massive claws of energy spread outward, reaching across the void like talons. Reyes stared at the display, heart heavy but unbroken. This war was far from over. Humanity had landed its first strike, but now the true wrath of the warlord was coming. And as the claws of crimson light stretched toward the fleet, Tawares whispered. To himself, a vow only he could hear. They fear our weapons. Soon, they will fear our will. The claws of crimson light stretched across the void, vast as mountains, sharp as death itself. They reached for the human fleet like hands closing around prey. Every ship trembled under their glow. Every soldier felt the weight of doom pressing. Against their chest, on the iron resolve, alarms screamed again. Systems flickered, screens burned with warnings. Officers stared at the advancing claws, fear twisting their faces. Even hardened veterans whispered prayers. Admiral Reyes did not move. His eyes followed the deadly glow, calculating, searching. Fear gnawed at him, but he buried it deep. If his crew saw him falter, hope would vanish. Evasive maneuvers, he ordered. Keep distance from those claws. Don't let them lock onto you. The fleet scattered as the claws swept down. One ship wasn't fast enough. The energy closed around it, crushing metal with unstoppable force. The screams of its crew echoed for seconds before the vessel imploded, reduced to debris. The warlord's laughter thundered across comms, cruel and unshaken. Run, little humans. Run until the void swallows you. Reyes clenched his fists. They couldn't just keep running. Humanity had landed one blow against the warlord's weapon, but that wasn't enough. If they only defended, they would die piece by piece. He needed a way to strike again harder. On the lower decks, Alina and her squad braced as the ship shuddered under the claw's pressure. Metal groaned, lights flickered, but still they stood ready. Every Marine was battered, bloodied, and exhausted, yet none dropped their rifles. Alina wiped grime from her eyes, thinking of Earth once more. She pictured oceans, forests, and her brother's laugh. The thought of losing all of it fueled her fire. She whispered to herself, "We're not prey, we fight." Back on the bridge, Reyes turned to his tactical officer. "What's the status of our heavy warheads, Admiral?" "We still have 3. Nuclear warheads armed, but their guidance systems are damaged. We can't fire them from range they'd miss." Reyes's gaze hardened. "Then we don't fire them. We deliver them." The officer froze. "Admiral, you mean suicide runs." A silence fell across the bridge. Everyone knew what that meant. To fly directly into the warlord's flagship, carrying warheads powerful enough to shatter countenance it, would be certain death for whoever went. Reyes spoke quietly, but his voice carried the weight of iron. "If we don't stop that ship, Earth burns. Better a few of us die now than billions later." The word spread across the comms. Some gasped in shock. Others clenched their jaws. For a moment, despair threatened to rise again. But then a voice broke through strong, defiant. "This is Captain Yara of the Sovereign. My crew volunteers." Another voice followed. "Captain. Drex of the Hammerfall. We'll take one too." One by one, battered captains pledged themselves. Humanity's will was not broken. Even in the face of certain death, they stepped forward. Reyes closed his eyes briefly, honoring their courage. Then he gave the order. "Prepare the warheads. Set the course. This ends here." The warlord's claws continued to sweep, tearing apart stragglers, pushing the fleet back. But amid the chaos, 3 ships broke formation. Their engines blazed brighter than ever, carrying them straight toward the monster's heart. Alina and her squad felt the shift as the iron resolve turned to cover the suicide ships. Over the comms, they heard the voices of the volunteers, calm, steady, proud. One captain laughed softly. "Never thought I'd see the end of the world," and spit in its face. Another said, "Tell Earth." We stood. The ships surged forward, dodging beams, weaving through enemy fire. Every second was a miracle. Exo-Chi fighters swarmed to intercept, but human squadrons rose to meet them, throwing themselves into battle to clear the way. Explosions lit the nebula like fireworks. On the flagship, the warlord's voice thundered in anger. "Fools, you cannot touch me." But the suicide ships kept coming. Closer, closer. The glow of the warlord's claws surrounded them, crushing one into fragments. The crew died screaming, but the other 2 pushed on, engines blazing with everything they had left. Reyes gripped the railing, whispering like a prayer. Just one. Just one hit. The first ship was torn apart before reaching the hull, but the second, broken, burning, leaking, fire slammed forward, carrying its warhead into the warlord's side. The detonation ripped through the void. A blinding flash engulfed the battlefield. For a moment, silence. Then the warlord's flagship staggered. Its armor split open, massive chunks breaking away. The claws flickered, their crimson light dimming. The impossible had happened. Humanity had scarred the beast. Cheers erupted across the fleet. Elena's squad screamed in triumph, hugging, shouting, firing into the air. Against all odds, they had struck a blow the galaxy thought impossible. But then the warlord's voice returned, no longer mocking, but furious. "You dare wound me? Then know this: your defiance will not save you. I will not stop until your world lies in ashes." The massive ship, though crippled, began to charge again, its core burning hotter, angrier. Humanity had won a moment of hope, but at a cost. And the war was far from over. Reyes stood tall, voice calm, despite the fury around him. "Then come, burn the stars if you must. But you'll never break our will." The battlefield burned like a dying sun. Wreckage drifted in every direction, shattered human ships, broken HFY cruisers, and countless lives lost in silence. At the center of it all, the warlord's flagship loomed, scarred from the nuclear strike, yet still terrifying, its crimson veins glowing brighter with rage. On the iron resolve, every soul watched as the massive ship began to awaken again. The wounds humans had carved into it were real, but not fatal. The warlord's fury poured through the comms, his voice deeper, darker than before. "You have scarred me. For that, your punishment will be eternal. I will burn your homeworld so slowly that even the stars will weep." The word sent a chill through the fleet. Fear threatened to return, but Reyes would not allow it. He stood tall, his voice calm, steady, like steel and fire. Let him roar. Let him promise death. But remember this: every empire that thought humans would kneel has fallen. We are not prey. We are the storm. His words sparked something inside the survivors. Pilots tightened grips on controls. Marines steadied rifles. Engineers patched bleeding holes with renewed determination. Alina, crouched in a smoke-filled corridor, heard those words through her helmet. She was exhausted, bruised, trembling, but her spirit hardened. "We're not done yet," she whispered to her squad, and they nodded. Still, the truth was grim. Humanity had little left. Ammunition was nearly gone, ships were crippled, and crews were bleeding. If the warlord's weapon charged again, the fleet would be finished. Reyes knew this. And yet, he had one last card. a secret project hidden deep within the Iron Resolve. He turned to his chief engineer. "Is the Aegis system operational?" The engineer hesitated, sweat dripping down his brow. "Admiral, it's untested. We've never used it in battle." If it fails, we die anyway," Reyes interrupted. His voice was sharp, final. "Activate it." The crew exchanged nervous glances, but obeyed. Deep in the core of the Iron Resolve, a hidden chamber came alive. Generators hummed. With dangerous energy, shields lit with glowing blue light. The Aegis system, humanity's experimental weapon, combining shield resonance and focused energy bursts, was about to face its first test. Across the void, the warlord's claws of crimson light spread once more, reaching toward the battered fleet. The glow of his core burned like a second sun, preparing to unleash devastation. Reyes clenched the railing. His voice thundered across. "Comes, all ships fall behind the Iron Resolve. Now we take the strike together." Confused but trusting, the survivors obeyed. The fleet pulled back, battered hulls aligning behind the flagship. The warlord laughed at the maneuver. "You hide behind one ship. Pathetic. I will crush you all in one blow." The claws closed in. The weapon fired. A storm of crimson energy surged across the void, aimed to wipe the humans out once and for all. But this time, the Iron Resolve did not shatter. The Aegis system flared to life. It's a massive shield of blue energy bursting outward, catching the crimson. Storm. The void shook as fire met fire, as will met fury. The shield screamed under the impact, glowing white-hot, cracks spreading like lightning. For seconds that felt like years, it seemed the ship would collapse. Then the energy bent. The Aegis system didn't just block it, redirected. With a deafening roar, the shield curved the crimson storm back toward its source. The warlord's own weapon turned against him. The blast slammed into his flagship, tearing through its armor, cracking its claws, ripping chunks of steel and bone into the void. For the first time, the monster staggered, truly wounded. Across the human fleet, cheers erupted. Pilots screamed with joy. Marines pounded their fists. Elena's squad hugged each other in disbelief. Against the impossible, they had survived. On the bridge, Reyes allowed himself a single breath of relief. Then his eyes hardened again. The battle was not over. The warlord still lived. His ship still burned with crimson fire, though weaker now, faltering. The Comes filled once more with his voice, no longer calm or mocking, but enraged beyond reason. "You think this changes anything? I will rip the stars from the sky before I let humans triumph." Reyes looked at the image of the cracked flagship, then at the faces of his crew, bloodied, tired, but unbroken. He spoke softly, more to himself than anyone. "No, warlord. This doesn't change anything. It proves everything." He straightened, his voice ironed once more. "All ships prepare. For the final strike, this ends today." Elena tightened her grip on her rifle, her heart pounding. For the first time, she believed it not just in survival, but in victory. The nebula burned with the light of two titans preparing their last blows. Humanity had revealed its hidden trump card. The warlord had revealed his true fury. And the next clash would decide not just the battle but the fate of Earth itself. The battlefield was quiet now, but the silence felt heavier than the thunder of war. Smoke rose in twisting columns, and the ground was scarred by fire and steel. The humans stood among the ruins, their faces tired, their bodies covered in dirt and ash. But their eyes were still burning with the same unbreakable will. The alien fleets had been shattered. What remained of them drifted far above, broken ships falling like dead stars into the void. The great enemy, once feared across the galaxy, had fallen to a force they had mocked. They had feared human weapons, thinking they were crude, too small to matter. But what had destroyed them was not weapons, it was human will. The refusal to break, the strength to rise again even after being pushed into the dirt. Admiral Kale watched from the command bridge. His hands trembled slightly as he looked at the display. For the first time, there were no red enemy markers left, only silence. He whispered softly, "It's over." But even he knew it was more than a victory. It was a warning to the galaxy, the surviving enemy commanders. Those who had escaped capture now spoke of humans in whispers. They had come to this war believing that humans were weak, that their strength was only in their weapons. But after facing them, they understood the truth. Weapons could be destroyed, fleets could be broken, but human will could not be conquered. On the ground, soldiers helped one another. Men carried their wounded brothers. Women stood over their fallen comrades, with tears in their eyes, but pride in their hearts. There was grief, yes, but also something greater: unity. Each person had fought not only for survival, but for one another. That bond was the real weapon, the one no alien had prepared for. In the alien halls of power, silence also reigned. Reports of the human victory spread faster than fire, and for the first time, fear filled the hearts of those who had never known it. Leaders sat in shadowed rooms, whispering the same question: if humans could defeat them, what else are they capable of? But humans did not shout their victory to the stars. There were no parades, no loud celebration. They buried their dead, they repaired their ships, and they held their families close. They did not need the galaxy's applause. They only needed to know they had survived, that their will had carried them through the storm. Yet, the galaxy had changed forever. Rumors spread like wind through forgotten worlds, whispers of a species that had faced the impossible and endured. The phrase became legend: fear their weapons if you wish, but fear their will more. Admiral Kale stood once more before his soldiers, his voice calm but firm. This war is not the end. It is a beginning. They thought we were fragile. They thought they could break us, but they were wrong. And now they will never forget us. His words echoed through the halls into the hearts of every soldier, every survivor. It was not arrogance, it was truth. Humanity had proven itself not by the size of its fleets or the power of its cannons, but by its courage to endure the fire and still rise stronger as the stars stretched across the dark sky. The humans knew the galaxy would never look at them the same way again. They had carved their place in history not as conquerors, not as monsters, but as survivors with an unbreakable spirit, and somewhere far beyond. In the broken silence of defeated worlds, the enemy remembered the last sight they had seen: human soldiers standing unbowed, their faces lit by fire, refusing to kneel. The war was over, but the legend of human will had only just begun.